Hello viewers, welcome to Newsweek South Asia, a program that talks about breeding of terrorism and its impact on South Asian nations. Let's begin the show with the headlines first. Al-Qaeda-linked Turkish charity group expanding its network in South Asia. Indian forces step up offensive against Pak-backed terrorism in Kashmir. And European think tank urges UN to hold Pakistan accountable for promoting terrorism. Turkey's links with several terrorist organizations have been brought out by various intelligence agencies time and again. President Erdogan is allegedly using charities as a cover to create network between his government and terrorist organizations. Now, the latest report by a Swedish media outlet has revealed the ongoing jihadi operations of an Al-Qaeda-linked Turkish charity group in South Asia. We have a report.
On 18 March 2016, Russia's UN ambassador Vitaly Churkin sent a letter to the UN Security Council saying that 3 Turkish organizations sent weapons and supplies to extremists in Syria. The Foundation for Human Rights and Freedoms and Humanitarian Relief was one of the organizations involved. Now the Swedish Nordic Monitor website has revealed that this Al-Qaeda-linked conservative NGO is spreading its wings in South Asia. According to the report, this so-called charity group IHH is running multiple projects in Nepal, especially in areas close to the Indian border. Known as a tool of the Turkish intelligence agency, IHH is working with its regional partner, Islami Sangh Nepal, in the region. The Kathmandu-based organization Islami Sangh Nepal is already under the scanner of Indian intelligence agencies for allegedly providing sanctuary to fugitive Indian terrorists in 2018.
We also have been seeing the reports from time to time that Turkey, whose leader, Mr. Erdogan, is in fact looking to become a leader of the Islamic world. And in that process, not only he is promoting the Islamist ideologies, but also the extremist ideologies in such a way. So we know that they have been operating in Kashmir, they have been operating in Iraq, in Kerala, in different other countries in the world. And here, in Nepal especially, they have found a good partner, not only in the Islamic Sangh of Nepal, but with the ISI that has been very, very active there. And as you know, that Pakistan and Turkey have a great nexus as far as extremism, terrorism is concerned. So we have to be extremely cautious in that.
The IHH receives special funding privileges from the Turkish government, which has backed the Al-Qaeda-linked organization when it faced numerous anti-terrorism investigations in the past. This jihadi group has already been designated as a terrorist organization by countries like Israel and Germany. Ankara is using IHH to expand logistical operations in support of global jihadist networks. On August 16, 2016, a former head of the Turkish police intelligence, Ali Fuat Yilmazer, testified in court that the IHH campaigns are designed to provide aid for jihadists engaged in terrorism around the world and supply medical aid, funding, logistics, and human resources for jihadists. Through Islami Sangh Nepal, the Al-Qaeda-linked IHH is seeking to gain a foothold in the region. The activities of Turkey-based foundation focus on several provinces of Nepal, especially in Province Number 1, Province Number 2, and Lumbini Province. It has established mosques, madrasas, orphanages, and Islamic centers in several cities, including the capital Kathmandu. Moreover, the IHH has taken a special interest in places like Sunsari that are close to the Indian border.
Nepal government has a greater responsibility. They cannot just shirk the facts. We have seen that ISI was allowed to operate in the country with impunity, which had indulged in several activities against India from the Nepalese soil. So that is something that the Nepal government will have to take charge of it and must take it head on before it is too late, because these groups once they are, wherever they are, that particular place also becomes their biggest target. And Nepal is a peaceful, nice Hindu country, and they should try and contain it on priority. This is extremely important.
Turkey has been actively funding and supporting extremist Islamic organizations in South Asia. New Delhi is also very much aware of Ankara's efforts to radicalize Indian Muslims and recruit fundamentalists. Last year only, an intelligence report accused the Turkish embassy in New Delhi of forging unholy association with Indian charity groups and other organizations. Moreover, in the same year, extremist alliance of Kerala's Popular Front of India with Turkey's radical group IHH was exposed by Nordic Monitor. The two key PFI leaders, E.M. Abdul Rahman and Professor P. Koya, had met senior IHH functionaries. India is now more careful of Turkey's nefarious plans as Ankara's tentacles in India and South Asia are going deeper than thought.
Terror financing, radicalizing innocent youths into jihad, and launching violent attacks on civilians and security forces have topped Pakistan's list of priorities when it comes to its unwarranted policy on Kashmir. However, to its major disappointment, the alert Indian security forces have been able to foil all their attempts by busting deep terror networks of Pakistan and eliminating and arresting top commanders of terror groups in Kashmir region. Our report.
Islamabad's executive wing specializing in terrorism received a huge setback as Indian security forces eliminated Chief of Al-Badr terror outfit Abdul Gani Khawaja, a most wanted terrorist in Kashmir's Baramulla district. Khawaja was involved in a number of terror crimes, including attacks on security forces and atrocities against civilians, as well as being the primary recruiter of youngsters into terrorist organizations.
हम सब जानते हैं कि कल सोपुर में एक अच्छा इनकाउंटर हुआ है जिसमें एक पुराना टेररिस्ट जो गनी ख्वाजा है मारे गए हैं। इसका बैकग्राउंड ये है कि 2000 में ये पाकिस्तान गया था ट्रेनिंग करने के लिए, फिर 2002 में वापस आया और 5 साल तक एक्टिव रहा बारामूला नॉर्थ कश्मीर में। उसके बाद 2007 में पुलिस ने इसको अरेस्ट किया, ये जेल में रहा, PSA भी इसका हुआ, फिर 2008 में रिलीज हो गया और 2008 से 2018 तक यानी दिसंबर 17 तक ये OW का काम करता रहा, मिलिटेंट के लिए स्लीपर सेल का काम करता रहा और फिर जनवरी 2018 में फिर से ये एक्टिव हो गया। 5 अगस्त 2019 के बाद यह HM छोड़ के अल-बदर का चीफ बन गया।
Later, in a big development, security forces averted 2 IED blasts in South Kashmir and arrested 4 terrorists associated with Jaish-e-Mohammed, including a student of BA first year who was being radicalized by his handlers through social media platforms to carry out the car bomb attack. In another preventive operation, police nabbed 3 terrorists associated with Lashkar-e-Taiba who were planning to carry out a major blast at a government building in Avantipura.
पिछले कुछ दिन से अवंतीपुर पुलिस 2 मॉड्यूल पर काम कर रहा था, जो एक जैश का मॉड्यूल है। जैश-ए-मोहम्मद एक कार बेस्ड व्हीकल बेस्ड आईडी ब्लास्ट करना चाह रहा था पामपुर एरिया में, पामपुर हो चाहे NH पर। उन्होंने एक साहिल नजीर, ये पामपुर का है, BA फर्स्ट ईयर का स्टूडेंट है। इसको बहुत दिन से टेलीग्राम और जंगी जो ऐप्स के इसके थ्रू इसको मोटिवेट किया और इसको कहा गया कि तुम एक सेकंड हैंड कार मैनेज करो, उसको पैसा दिया और नॉर्थ कश्मीर से एक्सप्लोसिव आना था, उसमें डाल करके इस एरिया में व्हीकल बेस्ड आईडी ब्लास्ट करना था।
After the abrogation of Article 370, a new wave of terror has emerged in Kashmir with indigenous flavor. Failing to engineer the infiltration of terrorists across the line of control, Pakistani agencies have resorted to social media platforms like Twitter, Telegram, and Facebook to radicalize and recruit Kashmiri youth. They are indoctrinating youths and influencing them with false narratives and enticing them to take violent paths besides providing them arms, ammunition, and other resources for spreading violence. Meanwhile, the common names of terror organizations active in Kashmir, like the Lashkar-e-Taiba, Jaish-e-Mohammed, and Hizbul Mujahideen, are gradually being replaced by new ones like the Resistance Front, Lashkar-e-Mustafa, Ghaznavi Force, and Al-Badr. Most of these groups are old wine in a new bottle, with the majority of the cadre being locally recruited. However, their operational and financial control remains with their bosses in Pakistan.
Like we saw in case of Pulwama, Pakistan is always, PTV and ISI, they always try to say that everything happening in Kashmir is because of our own homegrown issues and no foreign agency or no foreigners got any role to play, which is of course a very, it's a lie which everybody understands. So these are probably two factors. Firstly, to keep that chain which links Pakistan with such terrorists, to disrupt it, and secondly to give it a face of homegrown militancy. Social media is now the preferred tool. Firstly, it is cost effective. Secondly, it is not bounded by any geographical limitation. Sitting in Karachi, sitting in Islamabad, sitting elsewhere or in London, anywhere you can float a thing and it comes out to people in Valley. The person who sees it, a young mind, he sees it as a normal person would see anything. And when he's shown videos which are actually picked up from Middle East, Lebanon and things happening elsewhere, Syria, and then shown as if happening in Kashmir. So after 2, 3, 4 such instances, and then there's a scientific way of doing it. People who are doing it, they're doing it as per a scientific program. So the observer or the watcher, he starts believing it and he gets subverted.
Frustrated with ongoing development and peace in Jammu and Kashmir, Pakistan is using all the tricks in its book to incite terrorism in the region. Although most of its moves have either failed or backfired. Vigilant Indian forces have thwarted almost all of their ill designs. A significant number of terrorists have been eliminated, while many others have been apprehended. According to the Indian government, there was a significant reduction in terror incidents in the Union Territory in 2020 in comparison to 2019. 244 terror incidents were reported in Jammu and Kashmir in 2020 in comparison to 594 in 2019, while 221 terrorists were killed in 2020 in comparison to 157 in 2019. Till February 2021, 15 terror incidents occurred in the Union Territory, in which 8 terrorists were killed.
While terrorism is on decline, successful encounters are on the rise. So it happens because of how I look at it, two things. Firstly, terrorism can only survive as long as it has the popular local support. So this is one indication that people in general are moving away from these people. Secondly, security forces network is becoming more strong, and the technical thing which has now been incorporated, whether it is visual on the border line of control or surveillance through social media and other tools, that is now paying dividends.
Pakistan, which has lost its credibility in the global arena due to its constant support of terrorism, is somehow trying to convince the international community that it is a country that is working towards peace. Last month, India and Pakistan agreed to observe a strict ceasefire along the line of control. Meanwhile, on the security front, things are only deteriorating. Several new terror groups have emerged in the Union Territory. Terror infiltration bids from Pakistan also increase as summer begins in the Kashmir Valley. And now, Pakistan-backed terror groups have been adopting and adapting terror tactics from other theatres like recruiting and radicalizing local youngsters, drones to drop weapons, tunnels for smuggling, and introducing sticky bombs in Kashmir. This puts a question mark on Pakistan's intent as to whether it genuinely seeks peace at the border or it is hatching a bigger conspiracy, and peace gestures were merely a tactical move.
Every time Financial Action Task Force meetings loom on the horizon, there is a flurry of faux anti-terrorist activity by Pakistan. Symbolic arrests of terrorists are routinely conducted. After observing such farcical steps of Islamabad, a European think tank has urged the United Nations to hold Pakistan accountable for harboring terrorism. We have a report.
हमें इंशाअल्लाह इंतकाम लेना है. कश्मीर अल्लाह ताला ने ये इंतकाम के लिए रास्ता और फिर देख लीजिए.
In November 2020, Hafiz Saeed, the founder of the Lashkar-e-Taiba, received a 10-year prison sentence in Pakistan. In January this year, Lashkar-e-Taiba operations commander Zakir Rahman Lakhvi was arrested nearly 5 years after he was released on bail in the 26/11 Mumbai attacks case. These were just to showcase actions by Pakistan ahead of possible international actions. There have been scores of instances in the past when such actions were taken, but terrorists always got away scot-free. The entire world understands Pakistan's songs and dance routine to cover its sponsorship of terror. Islamabad is being exposed by different international organizations at various global platforms. While urging UN to hold Pakistan accountable for promoting terrorism, Amsterdam-based the European Foundation for South Asian Studies has exposed Pakistan during the ongoing 46th session of UN Human Rights Council.
In 2019 and 2020, following growing diplomatic pressure from the FATF and seemingly not driven by a genuine attempt to combat terrorism, Pakistan arrested Hafiz Saeed and Zakir Rahman Lakhvi, two UN-designated terrorists. These sham arrests exemplify Pakistan's double-edged approach towards terrorist activities. Terrorism is patronized when strategically useful, but opposed when it targets Pakistani interests.
Various terror organizations have continued to receive the military's patronage and unstinting support in Pakistan. Terror operations of LET and other jihadi groups are coordinated with the inter-services intelligence that provides it with intelligence and logistical support. Moreover, Pakistan Army and the notorious ISI help these terror groups in identifying specific targets. There has been some actions against some of the groups by Pakistani establishment, but the ones that have been deemed anti-Pakistan. FSAS also raised the issue of an unholy alliance of Pakistan Army with terrorism.
The current situation is a natural outcome of the well-oiled infrastructure for terror created over decades by the Pakistani Army and its intelligence agencies, and Islamabad's consistent distinction between good and bad terrorists. To be clear, the strategy has yielded no benefits for the political and economic well-being of Pakistan and the wider region. Until the Pakistani Army abandons this deeply entrenched way of operating, however, this situation will not change.
Most of the terrorist groups in Pakistan were created by the Pakistani state to serve its own purposes. However, its ability to control the various terrorist outfits is uneven, and some of them have turned against their creator. Unless Pakistan makes a strategic shift in its approach of not using these terrorists in furthering its interest in the subcontinent, it will continue to pay a price in terms of human lives and economic loss. There have been many bloody wake-up calls and there have been many half measures. But to win battle against terrorism, Pakistan needs to go the whole way.
Moving on, it's been more than 70 years since Pakistan, through illegal and immoral means of trickery and thuggery, occupied the present-day territory of POK and Gilgit-Baltistan. Ever since, it has been using these regions to propagate extremism and terrorism. Despite several warnings from the international community, terror launchpads are operating in full swing in Pakistan-occupied Kashmir, where terrorists are receiving training on cross-border terrorism and infiltration by the Pakistan Army. A report.
Pakistan-occupied Kashmir continues to be safe haven for terrorists and extremists operating in the country. The land over which the people of POK have their prerogative is blazingly being used to establish and proliferate terror camps. Not one or two, but a large number of terrorist camps thrive here. The gullible youth is indoctrinated in these camps only and then asked to infiltrate and unleash mayhem in neighboring countries, especially India. At one side, amid international pressure, Pakistan government pretends to launch a crackdown on these terror groups. On the other, terror leaders in Pakistan continue to carry rallies and hold meetings openly.
जो रावलाकोट में हुक्मरान जमात यानी पीटीआई का एक जलसा था रावलाकोट साबरशाही स्टेडियम में, तो वहाँ जितनी भी कालादम तंजीमें हैं उनके मुख्तदर जो लीडर्स हैं और कारकुन हैं उनने शिरकत की और भरपूर तरीके से शिरकत की। तो इसका मतलब यह है कि पीटीआई जो है वो इस बात से कन्विंस नहीं है या मौजूदा हुकूमत है कि ये कोई दहशतगर्द हैं, वेयर एज के वर्ल्ड कम्युनिटी जो है वो इन ऑर्गेनाइजेशनों को दहशतगर्द तंजीमें करार दे के इन पे बैंड भी लगा चुकी हुई है। और पाकिस्तान जो है वो एक तरफ आलमी इदारों के अंदर ये क्लेम करता है, रिपोर्टें करता है कि हमने दहशतगर्दों के इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर्स को भी डिसमेंटल कर दिया है।
After being cornered by international community for its increasingly active role in terrorism, Pakistan had made tall claims of cracking down at terror facilities. However, Kashmiri voices across the globe have refuted the Pakistani claims of fighting terrorism as a bogus exercise and say that all the camps are intact and in fact are being provided with constant reinforcement to keep their agenda thriving.
एक तरफ तो हुकूमत के जो टाल क्लेम्स हैं कि हमने दहशतगर्दों का जो है वो बेखकनी कर दी है पाकिस्तान की सोसाइटी में, तो अभी भी जो हमारा हमेशा से दावा रहा है कि पाकिस्तान में जो टेररिस्ट ग्रुप्स हैं उनका जो इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर है वो स्टिल इंटैक्ट है और वो अभी वो लोग जो दहशतगर्द तंजीमों से वाबस्ता हैं वो खुलेआम दंदनाते हुए जो है ना वो गली मोहल्लों में घूमते हैं।
With limited educational opportunities, the region has dismal literacy statistics and unemployment is widespread. They do not have even basic facilities at their homes. The resources of the region are exploited with impunity and no amount of share is returned to the people of the region. If demanded, they are subjected to supreme high-handedness of the state. Pakistan administration has also restricted media reporting from this region. Anybody who wants to stay and interact with the people of the region must have permission from the Interior Ministry of the country.
बाज़ ऐसे एरियाज हैं कि जहां ना तो मीडिया ऑपरेट करता है और ना ही उनकी खबर जो है वो किसी मीडिया के अंदर आती है। जैसे आज़ाद कश्मीर है या गिलगित बल्तिस्तान है, यहाँ जब लोग मार दिए जाते हैं उनकी लाशें किसी नाले से या किसी चौक चौराहे से बरामद होती हैं, तो ये उसको जो रंग है, जैसे हम जिसको शहीद करार देना चाहें तो उसके लिए हमारी दूसरी ज़बान होती है और जिसको मुर्दा करार देना चाहें तो उसके लिए अलग है, और जिसको बेरारो इंसान करार देना चाहें तो उसके लिए भी हमारी एक अलग ज़बान होती है। लेकिन मैं ये समझता हूँ कि अभी भी पाकिस्तान के अंदर जो ट्रांसपेरेंसी है वाक़यात के अंदर वो नहीं आई है, चूँकि मीडिया कंट्रोल है।
Demonstrations and protests have become a common sight in the region, as people are compelled to come to streets for numerous issues that remain unresolved by the administration. Ever since Pakistan invaded the region more than 7 decades ago, it has meted out a second-class citizen treatment to the people of the region. In most of the citizenry plights, the government is either complicit or culpable. It makes tall claims of granting these people rights at par with the normal citizen of Pakistan. However, the fact is that these people are deprived of even their fundamental rights.
And with that, we come to the end of this edition of Newsweek South Asia. We'll be back next week with more news, views and analysis from the subcontinent. Meanwhile, do keep writing to us at nwsa@nin.com. This is Shreya Savijay signing off on the behalf of entire production team of Newsweek South Asia. Goodbye and take care.